The political and religious legacy of the Crusades. Introduction. The Crusades, a series of religious and military campaigns launched by Christian Europe between the 11th and 15th centuries, were among the most transformative events in medieval history. Officially initiated to reclaim Jerusalem and other sacred Christian sites from Muslim control, the Crusades had profound political and religious consequences that shaped the course of European and Middle Eastern history. Their legacy is still felt today in the realms of geopolitics, religious relations, and cultural interactions. This essay explores the lasting political and religious legacies of the Crusades, focusing on their impact on the Christian and Muslim worlds, the evolution of power dynamics, and the transformation of the relationship between church and state. 1. The political legacy of the Crusades. The rise of monarchies and centralized power. The Crusades significantly contributed to the consolidation of power in the hands of monarchs in Europe. As kings and nobles embarked on the Crusades, many of them sold or mortgaged land to fund their campaigns, thereby weakening the feudal system. Monarchical strengthening. With the nobility often away fighting in the Crusades, monarchs were able to assert more control over territories, and the growing centralization of power in the hands of kings led to the decline of the feudal system. Kings such as Philip Augustus of France and Richard the Lionheart of England gained prestige and authority, setting the stage for the rise of modern nation-states. Royal patronage and control. The Crusades also helped to foster a sense of royal duty and legitimacy. Monarchs who led crusades gained further political and religious authority, and the papacy's support strengthened their political standing, creating a closer alignment between religious and secular leadership. The creation of Crusader states. The Crusaders established several Crusader states in the Holy Land, the most prominent being the Kingdom of Jerusalem, which lasted from 1099 to 1291. Feudal lordships in the Levant. The establishment of Crusader states brought feudalism to the Levant, where European lords and knights governed land under a system similar to the one in Europe. These states often required cooperation between European monarchs, military orders, and local Christian populations, creating a unique political and military structure in the region. Strategic military alliances. Crusader states played a pivotal role in shaping the politics of the Mediterranean. They engaged in complex alliances with neighboring Muslim, Byzantine, and European powers, influencing diplomatic relations and military strategies in the region for centuries. The decline of the Byzantine Empire. The Crusades had profound effects on the Byzantine Empire, whose emperor Alexios I Komnenos initially called for help in repelling the Seljuk Turks. Fourth Crusade and the fall of Constantinople. The Fourth Crusade, 1202 to 1204, which was originally intended to retake Jerusalem, instead resulted in the sack of Constantinople. The Crusaders' capture of the Byzantine capital weakened the Byzantine Empire irreparably, hastening its eventual fall to the Ottomans in 1453. This event deepened the rift between Eastern and Western Christianity and had lasting political ramifications in the Eastern Mediterranean. Theological and political division. The Fourth Crusade exacerbated the Great Schism between the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches, which had been a growing divide for centuries. The political betrayal of Constantinople by the Crusaders further entrenched the division between the Eastern and Western Christian worlds. The Crusades and the rise of the Ottoman Empire. The Crusader states in the Levant eventually collapsed under the pressure of Muslim forces, notably under Saladin and the Mamluks. However, the political instability caused by the Crusades indirectly contributed to the rise of the Ottoman Empire. Islamic resurgence. The fall of the Crusader states, particularly after the Battle of Hattin, 1187, and the eventual decline of the Mongol invasions in the region led to the rise of more powerful Muslim empires, including the Ottomans. Ottoman expansion. The weakening of the Crusader presence in the Levant opened the door for the Ottoman Empire, which captured much of the former Crusader territory and eventually took control of Constantinople in 1453. This shift fundamentally reshaped the political landscape of the Eastern Mediterranean and the broader Islamic world. 2. The religious legacy of the Crusades. Religious division between Christianity and Islam. The Crusades deepened the animosity between Christianity and Islam, creating a long-lasting religious divide. Crusader violence and perception. The Crusaders' massacres of Muslim civilians, including during the capture of Jerusalem in 1099, reinforced the image of Christians as violent invaders in the Muslim world. This narrative has continued to affect Muslim-Christian relations, particularly in the context of modern conflicts. Muslim resistance and unity. The Crusades also catalyzed a sense of Muslim unity under leaders like Saladin, who rallied the Islamic world against the Crusaders. The military resistance to the Crusaders, particularly Saladin's recapture of Jerusalem in 1187, became a symbol of Islamic strength and pride. The legacy of religious warfare. The Crusades set a precedent for religiously motivated warfare that would echo throughout history. 2. The religious legacy of the Crusades. Religious division between Christianity and Islam. The Crusades deepened the animosity between Christianity and Islam, creating a long-lasting religious divide. Crusader violence and perception. The Crusaders' massacres of Muslim civilians, including during the capture of Jerusalem in 1099, reinforced the image of Christians as violent invaders in the Muslim world. This narrative has continued to affect Muslim-Christian relations, particularly in the context of modern conflicts. Muslim resistance and unity. The Crusades also catalyzed a sense of Muslim unity under leaders like Saladin, who rallied the Islamic world against the Crusaders. The military resistance to the Crusaders, particularly Saladin's recapture of Jerusalem in 1187, became a symbol of Islamic strength and pride. The legacy of religious warfare. The Crusades set a precedent for religiously motivated warfare that would echo throughout history. Justification for religious wars. The Crusaders viewed their campaigns as holy wars, sanctioned by God. This concept of a just war based on religious ideology influenced later conflicts, such as the Spanish Reconquista, the 30 Years' War, and even some modern religiously motivated conflicts. Impact on church-state relations. The Crusades were initiated and sanctioned by the papacy, which used religious justification to assert political power. The relationship between church and state, particularly in medieval Europe, was redefined as a result of the Crusades, contributing to the church's growing influence over secular rulers. This intertwined relationship would continue to influence political decisions and military actions for centuries. Religious reformation and reflection. The failures of later Crusades, especially after the loss of Jerusalem in 1187, led to a spiritual crisis within Europe and the Catholic Church. Internal church criticism. The corruption and failures associated with the Crusades, especially the Fourth Crusade and the sack of Constantinople, sparked criticism within the Church. This disillusionment contributed to the growing dissatisfaction with the Catholic Church, laying the groundwork for the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century. Theological reflection. The Crusades raised important theological questions regarding the nature of holy war and the Church's role in state matters. These debates would play a significant role in shaping the future direction of Christian theology, particularly with the development of just war theory by theologians like Augustine of Hippo and Thomas Aquinas. Legacy of religious tolerance and coexistence. Despite the religious violence, the Crusades also had moments of cooperation and coexistence between Christians, Muslims, and Jews. Saladin's tolerance. After recapturing Jerusalem in 1187, Saladin allowed Christian pilgrims to visit the holy sites and demonstrated a level of religious tolerance, allowing Jews, Christians, and Muslims to live side by side in the city. This brief period of cooperation illustrated the potential for peaceful coexistence even in the midst of religious conflict. Interfaith dialogue. The Crusades, while rooted in religious conflict, also spurred some cultural and intellectual exchanges, particularly in the fields of medicine, science, and philosophy. The interactions between Muslims and Christians during the Crusades laid the groundwork for later efforts in interfaith dialogue, particularly in the Renaissance and Enlightenment periods. 3. The lasting impact on Christian-Muslim relations. Enduring mistrust and hostility. The Crusades left a legacy of mistrust and hostility between Christians and Muslims. The religious and military conflicts fueled by the Crusades contributed to a historical memory that continues to influence relations between the two faiths, particularly in the Middle East. Modern tensions. The legacy of Crusader violence, particularly the sack of Jerusalem and the Fourth Crusade's desecration of Constantinople, continues to influence modern perceptions of the West in the Islamic world. The Crusades are frequently cited in contemporary Muslim discourse as a symbol of Western aggression and intolerance. Political and religious interactions. Modern conflicts in the Middle East, including those involving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and Western military interventions, often draw on the historical context of the Crusades as a backdrop to religious and territorial disputes. Calls for reconciliation. Despite the legacy of division, the Crusades have also sparked efforts for religious reconciliation and interfaith dialogue. Papal apologies and outreach. In recent years, Pope John Paul II and Pope Francis have made significant gestures of apology for the violence perpetrated by Crusaders, particularly the sack of Constantinople. These acts of contrition have paved the way for efforts at healing historical wounds between the two faiths. Modern interfaith initiatives. The legacy of the Crusades, while negative in many respects, has also led to modern efforts to promote mutual respect.